Hey everyone, it's Oscar Prado here again to discuss technology in the music classroom. Specifically, this presentation is going to focus on one-to-one technology in the music classroom. Before I begin, though, I want to touch base on the presentation number one and my topic, which deals with technology and how to use technology as a tool to continue to motivate students to persist with the study of music. And so the last two articles I presented dealt with student motivation, specifically middle school band students' self-determination to practice. So states self-determination to practice, this study focused on using the states that intrinsic motivation and certain forms of extrinsic motivation is what drives levels of self-determination that lead to positive achievement outcomes. And so in this study, there was a survey that was used to measure motivational processes, 3 intrinsic, 3 extrinsic, and A motivation. And it found that intrinsic motivation to know was highest rated of all the subscales, which means that students are highly motivated to do something when it's new, right? And they're intrinsically motivated because they want to learn something. It's new and it's engaging because of that. What stood out in this study for me was the fact that the practice time increased when students are emotionally fulfilled. So these motivational processes were in relation to years of experience, amount of time practice, gender, grade level, type of instrument, students taking private lessons, and of all these, there was an increase in time to practice when students were emotionally fulfilled. So these studies, or these findings, suggest that music teachers should spend some time cultivating intrinsic motivational behaviors at the early stages of music instruction. And so the second study of that presentation focused on a music project that was used in Australia for students in that same age group between 12 and 14, and that were required to take general music class. That was not like music appreciation. There were actually students that were required to take a class that taught them how to read music through singing. But in this particular study, they implemented a project that used web conferencing and compositional software to engage students with music. And so what this study found, and you can see here by these graphs here in the top left, at the beginning of the project, the question, I think I'm going to enjoy music in this project. At the beginning of the study, maybe close to 45%. By the end of the study, by the end of the year, more than 80%. One of the things that stood out to me, though, was the fact that students wanted to engage with learning how to play an instrument. At the beginning of the study, maybe 45% were like, I'm not sure if I want to play an instrument. And at the end of the study, again, over close to 60% of students liked playing an instrument and pursued the study of an instrument, which I thought was great. And of course, this bottom graph here shows that, at the beginning of the study, beginning of the year, only 140 students were engaged with it, and by the end, 410 students. And also 98% of the students finished all the modules and continued with their instruction or with their engagement with music, right? Even after this class that was required, which I thought was really cool. So anyways, this particular presentation is going to focus on one-to-one technology, something that is becoming, I feel, more prevalent in our school systems. Specifically for me, it was implemented in our school, in our county, 2 years ago. All elementary, middle school, and high school students got a portable computer, and that's what one-to-one technology is. It's technology that students can interact with one-on-one, very personal. iPad, Chromebook, laptop, right? And so this, the first study here by Dorfman, music examined perceptions and concerns of music teachers, specifically in schools with one-to-one technology. This study was a case study of four teachers, and so in this particular study, data was collected using information taken from interviews and observations from 4 music teachers in the northeastern side of the United States, from varying schools: a 6th grade general music teacher, a 1st grade general music, 5th grade general music, and a high school band director. The observations were done through video conferencing, email, and in person. And the interview questions were based off of the concerns-based adoption model. The model suggests that individuals in education generally pass through stages of feelings or perceptions about newly implemented innovations. which the study refers to them as concerns. And so this data was collected over a period of 6 months. And so it was guided by four questions. What music education goals can be most effectively supported through the use of one-to-one technology? What are music teachers' primary concerns about the implementation of one-to-one technology? To what extent do music teachers integrate one-to-one technology programs into their teaching, and what factors influence them to do so? And what do music teachers cite as changes to one-to-one technology programs that could be beneficial to their students and to their practices, teaching practices? So participants in this study all agreed that when planned for effectively and when technology worked well, one-to-one technology has its benefits in supporting educational goals and objectives. As you can see here in this table, the most that it was used for was for administrative purposes, documenting work. The 6th grade general music teacher here used iPads to replace the textbooks. The 1st grade used it to replace sheet music, which I thought was really interesting. The high school band director used it to have collaborate listening activities that would enhance performances. But again, this focused on the concerns, and of all the concerns pertaining to one-to-one technology, the primary concern for all participants was related to systems of support and management adopted by their prospective schools. So basically, again here, concerns about school implementation. And I can kind of attest to this too. I related to this study and with those same concerns. At my county, they kind of dropped the technology on the teachers and on the school, and then the school every school had their own, ways of implementing it, and everyone was kind of unsure how we were going to use it. Every teacher, I felt, used it differently. Some used it more than others. Everyone was just on a different page, and this was the primary concern here. In this study too, so I found that to be very interesting. How is this going to affect student motivation to want to use the technology if not everyone's on the same page, not all the teachers are using it the same way? One participant felt that a younger pool of technologically savvy teachers can have an impact in moving this kind of technology forward. And so I thought that was interesting, because that was one of the concerns too. It was that specifically in this study, not all the teachers were comfortable using the technology. I mean, in this particular study, I think it was their first year using it, so that played a factor into them being comfortable with it. And as the time went on, they were more comfortable with it, so that was going to that looked like it was going to be better with time. But still, there was concerns regarding technical support, because again, this is new technology. Not everybody is aware of a lot of the software and applications that you can use with it, and that brought up another concern, which was the access to certain applications. Not everybody has the same access, or if a teacher found something that they wanted to use, maybe it was not available, they had to ask permission. And again, I'm an example of that. I found a really cool application, and then I wanted to use it, and I found out that I needed to contact the district to see if I could use it, and I had to go through all these different kind of avenues to try to use an application. So, this particular study had some limitations, right? Small number of participants. All participants were middle or upper class school district. And this study, because it used the concerns-based model, was basically designed to probe for concerns, right? So it was mostly aimed to see what are the concerns of teachers regarding this model, or the use of one-to-one technology. And so again, when planned for effectively, when the technology is working, it can be beneficial. There's a lot of cool things you can do with it, right? The participants here in this study, and I'll go back to it, using the iPads. Some of them use GarageBand. For like the 5th grade teacher used GarageBand for choral accompaniments. The general music teacher, the 6th grade general music teacher used GarageBand. to document work and to have students compose music. So, it has its use, but there's a lot of concerns. And so the second study looked into examining the impact of one-to-one computing on student learning and school culture by investigating its uses, various activities. So this particular study was interesting because it looked on different uses of this one-to-one technology and the perceptions of it by students and parents, and not just the teachers. And so, the guiding questions were: how do students use one-to-one laptops? What impacts does it have on the students in the school? And how do students, teachers, and parents evaluate such projects? And what concerns do they have regarding this type of technology? And so, in this particular study, there was 133 students that participated in middle school students in the northwestern side of the U.S. There was surveys and interviews that were used to collect data over the course of the 2003-2004 school year. Student surveys were administered at the beginning of the year, pre-laptop use, and at the end, post-laptop used. There were 4 sections to this survey. Demographic data was collected, student proficiency levels were collected, information on student technology use, and student attitudes, beliefs toward technology. There were 9 teachers and 9 students that were used for interview portions of this study, and all interviews were coded, and that's how the data was used for analysis purposes. And so the results of this study indicate that one-to-one computer use can be beneficial to the learning process here. You can see 37% of students use technology more than 3 hours. The majority of the time was used for doing homework, right, for schoolwork. And so according to this study, although all the teachers, 100% of them, believed that laptops were to students and themselves, 39 that were helpful for students and themselves. 39% of teachers believed that laptops were at times a distraction from the learning process. Almost 37% of students, again, spent more than 3 hours on their laptops. So there were concerns by parents. Again, 38% of parents felt like maybe there was too much time spent on the laptops. 39% of teachers felt that maybe it was harder to focus for students, but those are very low numbers compared to, 87% of students felt it was important for them. It helped. 89% of them felt it helped them with their work. 77% of parents, they were happy with the use of the one-to-one technology. 72% of parents believe it was important for the children's education. 75% of them hoped that they were going to continue with the project in high school. And 100% of teachers felt it was important. It was great for use for communicating with parents and students. There was an increase of technological proficiency, and that could, of course, that's going to happen, right? Because you're using this technology, and the more you use it, the better you're going to get at it. It was convenient communication between teachers, students, and parents, and just the school overall. It opened up communication between the students and the teachers. And so overall, one-to-one technology, has its place. Now, in this particular study, there were some limitations. It was not a typical school. This was like rich in technology that had all the resources. So that kind of limits generalizability again into schools that may not have students who are comfortable with technology or have this kind of technology. In this particular study, I think it was over 80% of the students had, all the resources at home and in school above the one-to-one technology. This data was collected over just one academic school year, and the self-reported data could not be checked. So a lot of the students who were like, oh, this helps me with my homework, that kind of data could not be checked. But just like the last study, this kind of technology, the concerns were the same: administrative support, teacher training, technical support. We need to be familiar with the applications and monitor discipline, but the pros outweigh those concerns, which is supported learning activities, enrichment of student learning experiences, real-time discussions. Student and teachers believe laptops help teaching and learning in spite of all these challenges. So I look forward to hearing your thoughts on one-to-one technology.